So I sent you a sheet that is more elaborate a little bit than I think we got last year. So if you can get it up, have a look at it on your, it's on the Fabrengen WhatsApp. I think you all have it. Yeah. Okay, so looking at the sheet now together, just follow me and it'll be a good review and you're encouraged to print it out. So the top of the page says where this is from, what we're analyzing. We're analyzing a Mishnah in Tractate Menachos, page 68b. Menachos is a tractate that deals with the meal offerings and related such offerings offered in the Beis Hamikdash. All right, so the left box reads, the second day of Pesach, the Korban OMER, the OMER offering is brought, allows personal consumption. In Hebrew, the words of the Mishnah, matir b'medina. Medina means the state, the country. So it allows for the country, people living in the countryside, meaning everywhere outside the temple, to eat of the new crop. Then we're commanded, you see the dotted line, it's 49 days, and then we're commanded Shavuos. On the 7 weeks later, hence it's called Shavuos, which means weeks. The Torah commands, shtei halechem, 2 breads should be brought, 2 loaves of bread, together with 2 sheep. And this offering allows offerings in Beis Hamikdash. Matir b'Hamikdash, it allows for using the new crop for minchas, for meal offerings. In brackets, gavoya. Gavoya means the one above. It's the term the Talmud uses to refer to Hashem, to the heaven, the one above. So that means then, in order to bring from the new crop, you need two things have to happen. In order to eat personally of the new crop, all you have to wait for is the Korban OMER brought on Pesach. But in order to use the new crop on Shavuos, you have to wait, in addition to that, another 7 weeks. Only after the Shtei HaLechem is brought, may the new crop be used. All offerings have to be brought from last year's crop. That, again, just to make it easy, you're holding a piece of grain of any kind in your hand. Can you use it? Can you eat it? So if it is for personal use, you have one question. Did this take root? Was it around when the Korban OMER was brought? If it was planted afterwards, you've got to wait till next year for the Korban OMER to be brought. If you want to use this grain as a Korban, then you have to ask yourself 2 things. Was it around when the Korban OMER was brought? Was it also around when the Shtei HaLechem was brought? In other words, if anything was planted after Pesach and grew and was harvested before Shavuos, you can't use it as a korban. You got to wait till Shavuos and then bring it. So you got to use only grain that had been around, and Shavuos allows its consumption. So we explained that it's a thank you. The simple level, it's a thank you. Is a thank you at the beginning of the harvest and a thank you at the end of the harvest season. When it comes to personal use, one thank you. When it comes to bringing for a korban, in addition to the personal thank you, you've got to say another thank you, dear God, and then bring it as a korban. That's the basic halach. Now, in the text in between the 2 boxes, the Mishnah said like this. After the OMER offering, if a person brought the grain as a korban, he did wait for the first day. It was planted, it took root before. But he should wait for the 2 breads to be brought. He didn't. What's the ruling? So the Mishnah says, b'di'evet, post facto, it's valid. However, before the OMER, if you want to bring a korban from grain before the OMER, it's invalid. It's just invalid. You've got to bring your offering again. And that's the words of the Mishnah, im hevi, if you brought it, im hevi, it's like post facto, after the fact, and b'di'evet, once it's done. As long as you waited, in other words, it's grain that existed before the OMER offering is brought, even though he didn't wait, it never experienced the Shtei HaLechem offering of Shavuos. If you brought it, it's kosher. So then there were 3 views, 3 explanations why this is so. Why, when it comes to the OMER offering, that's unconditional, but the Shtei HaLechem is not unconditional. You should, but if it didn't wait for Shtei HaLechem, it's kosher. So there are 3 explanations. First one, in essence, it's one prohibition lifted in 2 stages. The Torah says, don't use the grain. Nobody, nothing, ever. Until the OMER, okay, you guys can use it. The Shtei HaLechem, oh, now you can bring it for the Beis Hamikdash. So since it's one prohibition and lifted in 2 stages, that answers why if after the fact you respected the first prohibition, your korban is kosher because it's a compromised prohibition because you already respected part of it. Again, look at the text. In essence, it's one prohibition lifted in two stations. Hence, it's weakened when? After the first korban is brought, the korban OMER, that weakens the prohibition. So you should wait for the second one, but it's not a strong, powerful prohibition. It's already been respected in part. Therefore, your korban is kosher. That's the first view. The second view argues and says, no. There are two prohibitions, not one weakened in stages, but to begin with two distinct prohibitions. The difference being that the first is absolute and the second to begin with isn't. Why would that be? And the brackets tells you. Since Kodshim, there's a principle that says that all laws that govern sacrificial food, in order for a prohibition to be absolute, in other words, even after the fact it's unacceptable, it requires a repeated prohibition. Torah's got to say on two occasions, don't do it, to be absolute. If Torah doesn't say it on two occasions, Torah says only one, it means to say you should, but if you did, it's still kosher. In this case, there's no two prohibitions, only one. There's only one, so therefore to begin with, it isn't absolute, so you should wait, but if you didn't, it's kosher. That's the second view. The third view has a completely different position and says we're not dealing with one prohibition lifted in stages, we're not dealing with two prohibitions, one absolute and one not absolute. We're dealing only with one prohibition in the first place. There's no prohibition, period, associated with shtei halechem. There's no, the Torah doesn't say the word no at all. Period. So what's the point? Let's read the text. Only one prohibition, the OMER. That's the only thing the Torah says don't do. What about the OMER? The shtei halechem on Shavuos? The Torah's intent is solely that the shtei halechem should be the first korban of the new crop. There's no prohibition involved. It's a mitzvah that the first korban you bring it the new crop be the shtei halechem. So by inference, of course, don't bring it before. But the Torah doesn't say don't anything. Its point is this should be the first. Obviously, you don't. That's the inference. If this should be the first, then don't bring it earlier. But the Torah doesn't command it. In the words, bottom of it, just underneath in quotations, mincha chadasha, the phraseology which we learned. We read these texts when we first started this whole journey. We read the very psukim. There, the Torah says that the shtei halechem should be your first offering. That's the end of the story. So, therefore, that explains. If a person brought his OMER offering after he brought a mincha offering after the korban OMER, there's absolutely no problem because he respected the prohibition. Your korban is good. What you did is you messed up the shtei halechem. The shtei halechem is not going to be the first because you got yours in. Hold off. You should have held off. You should have held off. Held off. You should have held off. You should have held off and not brought it. You didn't. So you did it. You know when to compromise your korban. You just messed up that the Shavuos is not the shtei halechem. It's not going to be the first korban. The shtei halechem of Shavuos won't be the first thing. You got it in earlier. The next line, nafke mina, a practical difference between these three views. The question is going to be like this. Okay, somebody brought their mincha after the korban OMER. We say it's kosher. All the opinions agree. It's just why. Now the question is, he did it already. Can he bring another one? Can somebody else bring one? Somebody else comes to the Beis HaMikdash and he tells the Kohanim, this is from the new crop. I waited for the korban OMER, but I never experienced the shtei halechem. Can I bring it? Yes or no? May I want to bring a Thanksgiving offering, and I've got only grain that experienced the OMER. May I or not? It's asking in the first place to the Kohanim on duty in the Beis HaMikdash. What's going to be the response? The first two views are going to say, no, of course not. He did. He shouldn't have. After the fact, it's kosher. There's still a prohibition in force, either weakened or one that to begin with is not absolute, but their prohibition still exists with respect to the shtei halechem. Don't bring it, because the shtei halechem has to be the first, but they understand that it's a prohibition. Therefore, don't do it. This guy did, he did. But post facto, it's kosher. It doesn't justify anybody else doing it. But the third view would say, gezinter, no problem. You can bring your korban. Anybody else can bring your private minchas, because the whole point, there's no prohibition, nothing wrong with your korban. The whole point is that the shtei halechem should be the first. That's already no longer possible. someone brought their korban, so you can bring another one, others can bring, the whole thing is moved. So there's a practical halachic difference between the view 1 and 2 and view 3. In practical terms, can someone now bring his korban, yes or no, after somebody brought his korban after the korban, but didn't wait for Shavuos? First two views say, no, absolutely not. Not absolutely, but don't do it. If you got it in, we'll have to accept it, but don't do it. And the third view says, Gezinterheit, no problem at all. There's no prohibition at all with respect to your korban. It's another consideration. Shtei Alechem should be the first. Then we started to explain the spiritual dimension already. So look at the next two lines on the page. We noted that OMER, number 1, is Barley. So now we're explaining it al pi Chassidus. Till now, this is completely explained at the nigla, the revealed halachic level. At the halachic level, it's all the thanksgiving for the harvest. That's what it is. That's the simple meaning. That's the pshat. Why is barley the first offering? Because the Torah says you should bring an omer of your first of the grain to ripen, and barley ripens first. That's nature. Then the Torah says 7 weeks later, you bring wheat and bread, because wheat ripens last. That's the end of the harvest season. Essentially, it's 7 weeks. After Shavuos begins the ingathering. Let me just say to you, at the pshat level, the 3 holidays, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, especially Shavuos and Sukkot, have to do with agriculture, with the cycle of life for the Jewish farmer in Israel. Okay, Pesach is the Exodus, so that's another dimension to it. But at the pshat level also, Pesach is the planting season. Shavuos is celebrating the end of the harvest. And Sukkot, the Torah says in black and white, is the ingathering. By Sukkot already we have gathered all of the fruit of the crops and the fruit which ripen later in the field. It's in the silos. That's why. That's the simple reason, friend. At the pshat level, look at this. At the pshat level, it does not say to be joyous on Pesach. There's no word of simcha. The pshat level, why? You just planted your seed. I mean, what's going to happen? There's no simcha then. Shavuos, the Torah says one time be joyous. Oh, because they've already harvested. The person's already feeling accomplished. It's going to be food for the winter, etc. That was an agricultural economy.
Rabbi, what does harvesting mean? What's the difference between harvesting and gathering?
Harvesting still stays in the field. You tie it in bundles, remains in the field. And in gathering is you take it into the silos. You bring it from the field into the silos. So wheat is left in bundles in the field, also to dry, etc. Fruits go pretty much directly. You harvest and then you take them in the baskets and you take them to the silos or take them to the place. But that's the basic difference. Cutting it or storing it, in simple words. So Shavuos, which is just the cutting, the harvest, the Torah says one time simcha. It's already a joyous occasion. You can see the produce of your labor, so that induces joy. But Sukkot 3 times, because your silos are full, the vats are full, the wine vats, the oil vats, the fruit is being dried. They would dry the fruit basically, and so they can use it throughout the summer, throughout the year for that matter. Dry the figs and so on. And that's the simple reason why Sukkot is the big simcha. That's the simple reason, because the silos, God willing, and the storehouses are full. And that's the simple reason for the lulav and the esther. I'm talking pshat, not Chassidus. See, most people don't even know the pshat level. The Chassidus inside, but that's already a deeper layer. The pshat for the lulav and the esther is they all grow by water. What's now? What happens now after we want rain? Now we're going to the winter season, we want rain. So therefore, we pray for rain at the end of Sukkot and we evoke it with the 4 kinds, etc. So it all follows the seasons and the agriculture. Now, Chassidus explains how that's a reflection of our service of God. And since I'm mentioning it, in other words, the question is, we're not farmers, friends. Even in Israel today, it's no longer predominantly in the agricultural economy. So what's the whole thing? Because spiritually it continues. Pesach, there's no joy because Pesach is our spiritual birth. Pesach is the yontiv of faith. Joy, simcha, is when you understand, when you appreciate, when you have taste. So in the beginning of your service of God, which is when we're starting on Pesach, it's not a question of joy, it's a question of discipline. That's how education begins. It's only after you learn and then you appreciate. No kid wants to go to school. It's discipline. That's the beginning. We're going to Cheder. No, so that's Pesach. Shavuos already, 7 weeks later, we're working on our on our emotions. There's a process of refinement. There's some satisfaction that you have accomplished. And then Sukkot is the ultimate accomplishment. Because why Sukkot? Sukkot follows after what? Yom Kippur. And what's Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur is we sinned and we did Shuvah. There's no bigger joy than that. Shavuos represents the joy of the tzaddik. We see the Torah, we've refined ourselves, everything is fine and good in the world, and he's very happy. But the crazy joy is 3 times joy on Sukkot, which means it's limitless. The crazy joy of Sukkot and its inner dimension is rooted in because this is a joy that comes after the giving of the Torah too, because Yom Kippur is the giving of the second set of tablets. And that is a result of Teshuvah. And the Baal Teshuvah has the greatest, craziest joy of a simple level. Why? I can't believe you allowed me back. You gave me a second chance. And you still love me, you love me even more. That just we go crazy with joy. That's Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah culminates Yom Kippur. That's really what it is. It culminates this giving of the second luchas, the second tablet, which is Yom Kippur, and that's what the biggest joy. There are many more layers to this. We talk about this, and thousands of memorim and hundreds of classes that we've given, not hundreds, but many classes on the subject. But you just heard now the spiritual faith. That's Pesach, foundation. I'm Jewish. That there's no understanding yet. It's just in infancy. It's just going to Cheder. It's commitment. Then Shavuos is already receiving the Torah. That's the tzaddik. And now we're innocent and all is good. So it's happy, but not crazy happy. And then comes the whole summer and the ups and downs and Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av and the whole business. Followed by Yom Kippur. That's the greatest joy. And that's the template for life, friends. That's how life goes. In one way or another. That's how it goes. The end is Teshuvah, and the end, the ultimate joy, the Messianic era. It's a template for life and for the history of the world also in the bigger picture. But that's not for now, it's not our discussion. Let's continue. So, look at your page. Gewalt. So the bottom of the page was now in the light of Chassidus. So the OMER is Barley. So it's not just what happens to ripen first, but it's animal fodder. It represents the endeavor working on our animal soul. The sota, we mentioned the sota is someone, right? We repeat this, the Torah prohibits, period, to be in seclusion with another person, another woman or woman with a man other than your wife or husband or mother, daughter, immediate family. Just mother and daughter, friends, and sister. And sister, nobody else, not a cousin, nobody. And that's such a healthy law, friends, very healthy. A lot of doctors and so on would have wished they observed that law and saved millions in people suing them. You touch me, you did this and that. The door was always open and never alone. And nurses in the room. That's the halach. The door is open, ajar, the people could see there's someone in the room, never in seclusion. And it has to be an operation then. Okay, but there's people. But it's a very healthy law. And I should say, it's not because simply what it could lead to. It's because being alone is an intimacy, a tension that's inappropriate, unless it's your wife or it's an immediate family where that's not a sexual thing. But anybody else, there should be some kind of, sexual tension, being alone with a member of the opposite gender. And if you don't feel any tension, there's something wrong with you. You've deadened your sexual responses, which is what happens in our society because we're bombarded constantly with sexual stimulus. Everything is sold on the basis of that. It's done exploiting, and it's always women. And so it's just to live, you become immune. What does a body mean? What does a touch mean? That's terrible. It should be very, very powerful. A touch should be powerful. A graze of a finger should be an erotic sense to it. It shouldn't just be, and if it's blasé, because we're dead. And that's why there's so many problems today in marriages, in intimacy, because it was so bombarded in order to live. Just turn it off, you turn it off, you turn it off. And then you want to summon it, you can't, because you've been turning it off all the time, a whole day, a whole year, months, years. You watch television, you want to watch it like a mensch, you can't get it there. You got to look at it indifferent. An advertisement, a movie, etc. Sad. Just think of the beauty. If we observe Torah laws, look what, only supposed to look at what sneers, etc. It just makes us alive powerfully. And so when you are commanded to express it in loving intimacy with husband and wife, it's very intense because you didn't squander it. A little bit here, a little bit there, a little depleted. You become immune, but a little bit, you are affected, so you squander it. Well, instead of being a laser beam, it's like diffused light everywhere. It's weak and segunish, but gunish, nothing but nothing. Trust me, this is a crisis in America today in marriages, and this is one of the reasons for it. And the recipe is the Torah's recipe. Tznius, modesty, mikveh, it just keeps it alive, keeps you alive. Beautifully. So what's the saita? The saita is, first of all, she's not supposed to be in seclusion. The husband's actually suspicious. He's suspicious that he tells her, do not be alone with this guy. And then there are witnesses that they were in seclusion for enough time for intimacy to take place. So we all know what happens. She has to be tested by the waters of the Sota. And a part of the waters of the Sota is to bring a korban. What korban? Barley. Why barley, says the Gemara? Because she did an animalistic thing. She has to bring an atonement for animal food. So we see that barley is animal food. Just by the way, this is interesting that the sages discontinued the whole thing, the whole Sota test, for two reasons. Main reason is it doesn't work if the husband himself has been unfaithful. So what happened was he would say, no, she has to drink the waters. She'd be tested, nothing happens, and something did happen, but she didn't get affected. Not her, not the fellow she was with, and it looked like it doesn't work, but it really didn't work because it only works if he's innocent. So therefore, when there was a moral decline, the sages said, finish, not doing this anymore. Because it makes the Sota waters look like they're not true, and they are true. And the second reason, the opposite reason, that there were women who didn't have children, so that's what they would do. Because what does the Torah say? If the end was that she was innocent, then to compensate for her humiliation, the truth is she shouldn't have done it. No matter how you slice it, you're not supposed to be in seclusion, especially her husband said, please do not. I'm asking you. She went ahead anyway. So what would happen? People didn't have children. She'd contrive this whole thing. And it's all Baba Mises. And then she'd get blessed and have children, which is a beautiful thing. But that's not what it's for. So it's discontinued. Hashem will find, God willing, his way and bless couples with children. All to say that that the Sota, it's the only offering in the Beis HaMikdash of all the minchas, all the grain offerings. They're all wheat without exception, except for the OMER and the Sota. Now you know why. Spiritually, because both are dealing with refining the animal soul. So continuing the not chametz, self-negation. What does that mean? How do you refine the animal soul? You got to discipline, self-negation, not indulging in what I want to do. That's how it has to begin. The first step in the path, in the service of God, is discipline. That's what the Gemara says. Why do we say Shema before V'hoyim Shemaya? Why does Shema appear before Shemaya? Because Shema is first accept the yoke of heaven, and then the yoke of mitzvahs. And the yoke is a good metaphor, because like the animal, the yoke. So not chametz, self-negation. That's the OMER offering on the second day of Pesach. Let's make it clear what this means. Obviously, anytime a person does a mitzvah, whether he's accepted the yoke, refined himself, it's always good. We're talking now about how a person's embarking on the journey of divine service. So the Torah is saying the OMER offering is not negotiable. Don't do mitzvahs until you accepted the yoke of heaven. That's the foundation. Sacred the animal soul. There's got to be some recognition that life isn't about my animal soul, my physical pleasures and senses and power and pleasure, but there's a higher purpose, and that's not negotiable. That's the foundation of relationship. Acknowledging that there is a God And we're here to fulfill his commandments. That's the foundation. That's why we're answering now on a deeper level, why the korban of the OMER is not negotiable. It's similar to like this. Similar. The Gemara says, if a person is unrefined and arrogant, the Torah he learns is poison. Zocha nasaloi samamoves. The more Torah he learns, the more arrogant he becomes, the more sense of entitlement, etc., etc. Right. And Zocha, but if a person is refined, then the Torah is the elixir of life. Samachayim. It's a similar idea. So before we do mitzvahs, it has to be the acknowledgement and the humility, and that is the self-negation. That's why it's not chametz. It's the second day of Pesach, this offering. The Kohanim ate it on God's behalf, but it's not chametz, it's singed. They singed the kernels, it was toasted grain, but not chametz, because that's the beginning. And what kind of grain? Barley, that's the beginning. And that's not negotiable. So now the question is, oh good, so I accept the yoke of heaven, now what? All of a sudden, we're told it comes, Shavuos, you have to bring another korban. What's the other korban of Shavuos? So the answer is, let's look at the two breads on Shavuos. First of all, it's wheat. Wheat represents what? Human consumption. Secondly, it's bread. Now we have to appreciate that this is most unusual. All of the mincha offerings that are brought in the Beis Hamikdash, whether personal or on behalf of Klal Yisrael, like Shabbos and Yom Tov, they're all chametz. I mean, not chametz. Pay attention, you'll see. The 12 breads, friends, they were offered, the 12 loaves, offered every Shabbos, and not chametz. Every Shabbos. For the obvious reason, because you bring your offering, it's all about self-negation. But there's two exceptions. The Thanksgiving offering and this one. Shavuos. You have to bring the bread. What's going on now? So before we explain why we're bringing it as an offering, what does the bread symbolize? So have a look at the line. Wheat, bread, human consumption, chametz, self-expression. Self-expression. The dough rises. So what does this represent? Is chametz bad? On one hand, you say, yeah, terrible. It's hardly brought in the Beis Hamikdash. Hardly, but there is. And if it's so offensive, how come year-round we're allowed to have chametz? The answer is, it's not bad. Chametz represents the ego. Is the ego good or bad? It depends what you're using your ego for. If it's based on the foundation is self-negation, surrender, a dedication, devotion, then your ego is healthy. You got an opinion, you have a personality, use it, learn Torah, discover insight, be expressive, your emotions, love God, be in awe of God, build healthy ego. The ego that's built on what? On the foundation of humility. That's healthy. That's why it's two breads here. That's why it's bread, it's wheat, because now you become a mensch. This is human consumption. A human being is not as remain with the yoke and that's it, submissive. Hashem wants the human being to be expressive, but the expression and the talent is based on the submission. Every day begins that way. I surrender. Yeah, dear. Yes, dear, as Moishe says. And then, based on that, you build, you express, you build yourself, you learn, you understand, you contribute, your voice is heard. You're a leader. Everybody has to be a leader in their way. So that's the two breads. But we have to bring it what? As a korban. And with two sheep. So we look, this is this review we looked last week, that the two sheep, what's a sheep? A sheep is docile, a sheep is what? Bittul. So here we talk, the message here is that don't forget, it's important even as you're contributing, never to lose sight of, it should be done humbly. Foundation, but then bring it consciously into your service of God. So we explained like this, the two breads, why the two breads? Oh, why two? One. So one OMER offering was his two breads. So one of the illusions is the written law and the oral law. And you put the two together, surmount. Now the bread's on the outside, the sheep on the inside, and the kohen he lifts it, waves it in 6 directions, and is brought as an offering. What's the 2 breads? The 2 breads are the written law and the oral law. We explained the difference between the written law and the oral law. That the oral law is all about understanding, and the written law is about the word of God. The combined together is, as we're learning and contributing and writing books, you're a big scholar, etc. It's also fused with the humility. This is all God's Torah. The whole approach is a humble approach. It's the fusion now. It's the fusion of self-expression and self-negation. Beginning is pure self-negation. No comments, no opinion. Listen, dedicate, discipline, yoke, finish, break the bronco back, harness the ox. And now, expressive, but that expression is fused with the humility, hence the offering on Shavuos. In other words, that in our Kedusha, in our holiness Gufa, that also has to be with a degree of humility, a strong degree of humility. Even though you've already foundationally expressed your devotion. And the fact is you're an observant Jew. So what's a bigger proof than that? You're living a life that is the yoke of heaven. You're an observant Jew. You're keeping Shabbos and learning Torah, mitzvahs and everything. Your actions express that you have the yoke. That's the fact. Nonetheless, so the foundationally it's there. Nonetheless, on a conscious level, one has to constantly, the Shtei HaLechem, the offering is saying that even my learning, etc., has to be suffused consciously with the awareness this is divine, and the humility must pervade even as I'm expressive of myself, even though that's based on what? On a basic commitment. And that already explains the basic law. The basic law is if you don't bring the korban OMER, gunish mit gunish, nothing but nothing, you can't bring an offering. Mitzvahs kick in after accepting the yoke of heaven. After accepting the yoke of heaven, and now you're into the world of holiness. You should, this is in the first place, also bring the Shtei HaLechem, the 2 breads, that the scholar needs to suffuse and take time from his learning and can constantly feed it, as it were, with this element of profound humility. That's what you should do. But if you didn't, your mitzvahs are kosher. Why? Because the basic commitment is there. Simple as that. You brought the korban OMER. You're committed to a Jewish life. So we're not telling you don't learn, don't do mitzvahs. Do it. But it should be what? It should come after your mitzvah. This is all spiritual, not on the clock. Spiritual. It should come after the Shtei HaLechem. It's a higher form of humility. It's bringing humility even into our Torah learning on a whole new level that goes beyond just committed Jew. It's a much more subtle kind of humility. Similar, just to illustrate this, add a little bit of detail. It's interesting. The Gemara says like this. The Talmud says, with respect to the schools of Shammai and Hillel, as you know, they argued in many major points of halacha of Jewish law. So the Gemara says that the halacha is like Hillel. Why? Because of their humility, they allowed the Shammai to speak first, their humility. So Chassidus says that's the reason. If you'd say because they had sharper arguments, okay. But their humility, yes, because their humility in their bittul, Shammai was also, but humble, but sharper. And Hillel had this deep humility, and therefore they were able to tap into even a deeper understanding of the Torah. Shammai may have been more intellectually sharper. Because of Hillel's greater humility, they were to discover a deeper level of the divine, a deeper level of understanding, a deeper insight. It's an amazing thing, not because they were IQ, because of humility. So this is the second level. It's optimum, we have to strive for it, but if a person is learning because doesn't have this conscious thinking, because he wants to know, he wants to understand, he wants the reward in the next world, it's still good. You're doing mitzvahs, you brought your OMER offering, you've accepted the yoke of heaven, kosher. Missing this higher level, it doesn't invalidate your mitzvah. So that explains the halacha. Now what we need to do is explain the three views I gewalt. It's very late. The three views within this halach. That if im heavy kosher, he didn't wait for the shtei alechem, it's kosher. Now, for us to look inside the text, we won't get very far, and the text is very brief. So we'll try and share with you a possible explanation of what we're being taught here, and that is there are three views. One view is it's one prohibition, lifted in stages. Second view is two separate prohibitions. One absolute, one to begin with not, and the third view is not going to do a prohibition. It's the shtei alechem should be the first. What are these three levels in the service of God? Three ascending levels. One level is, it's one prohibition. In other words, let's understand. What does it mean to take the yoke of heaven? Yoke of heaven is, you want to indulge in, without taking the yoke of heaven, we're animals. We want to indulge, we want to enjoy, we want pleasure, we want it now. And a child wants it now, or wants what I want. So the first thing is grow up, and commit something I want to something higher, to God's commandments. Now here's the thing. Level one is like this, that a person, what's his Yiddishkeit? He's come to realize he used to enjoy sin, whatever, secular, whatever it is, and now he's enjoying Yiddishkeit. Takes a while to develop, like anything that's a little bit refined, takes a while to develop the taste. If everybody knows, like coffee, yeah? When you first start drinking coffee, anybody have sugar. Now, I can't have sugar, it destroys the coffee, but the first time you drink with sugar, it's bitter. Or wine, dry wine. A kid likes sweet. To appreciate dry wine, it takes time to cultivate. And then it comes a point that the sweet wine is syrup. And the connoisseurs and the dryer, etc., the hint. What I'm saying is that even in the physical world, a more refined pleasure takes time to cultivate. In everything, art, music, etc. And what's this level? What's the person holding? It's level number one. Instead of till now, my enjoyment was in the golf, and that was my whole life, and making money and other physical pleasures. And now it's a Yiddishkeit, Shabbos and learning. It's so beautiful. And this is very valid. And this is a motivation for many people. Why keep it? They see how beautiful it is. They see what a beautiful life it is. They see the family life. They see husband and wife, how it's respectful. They see the children. They see the nachas. They want it also. And that's beautiful. But there's no real change. It's I did what I wanted to do then. I do what I want to do now. Except now I've elevated. What do you want? I've come to appreciate that the life of Yiddishkeit, that satisfies a deeper need within me. It's a deeper pleasure. And everybody knows this, right? We all know this. Keeping Shabbos is a tremendous discipline. And it's very hard to do. And if you weren't brought up in it, it takes a long time. So finally, break the yoke, break it, and we start keeping Shabbos. Then after a while, you can't, how did I not keep Shabbos? How could I not observe it? Such a beautiful gift, especially nowadays, mind you. Nowadays, Shabbos, just this, freedom from this. What freedom? We actually talk to each other, they can think, we speak, look each other in the eye, sitting at a table, no one's on their phones. What a gift. Who doesn't want this? Who wouldn't want it? Every week. Going anywhere, it's time for husband and wife to be together. It's all of the. So that's the first position. The first position is, it's one prohibition we've got to deal with. Lifted in stages. Meaning, the person's Yiddishkeit is it's still my pleasure, but it's cultivated a higher kind of pleasure. That's the lowest level. Okay, we're running out of time, but the second level is, what's the second level? It's two separate prohibitions. It's two separate prohibitions. But one's absolute and one's not. First for you, it's one, the person didn't change fundamentally. He enjoyed this, now I'm enjoying that. Second is there's a change. This is a higher level of service of God. He's into Yiddishkeit right now, not for the enjoyment. There really is an element of service to Hashem. And he's learning Torah because he's commanded to learn Torah. So here we're telling him what offering is required for this person. Like the Hillel story. In order to learn Torah on even a deeper level, you've got to endeavor to bring their humility, let them speak first, work on yourselves even there in order to your Torah study, your mitzvah should be at even a higher level. We're running out of time to explain. But you get the drift, I'm sure. So what's the third level? Third view says there's no prohibition, not dealing with prohibition. There's the higher level. What's the third level? Here to begin with, it isn't about you at all. Not about you at all. The person's transcendent that. Here he's serving Hashem to fulfill his will. I need to explain what this means. The fusion of the written law and the oral law. David the Melech, he fused the Torah. This is being drawing the infinite into the Torah. It's a mincha chadash. It's a new service of God, La Hashem. It isn't about you, anything. It's completely beyond self. Completely. It's about fulfilling Hashem's need, as it were. The first two is self to one degree, enjoyment or success. The difference. First one, we got to work on the me enjoyment factor. The second one is not about my enjoyment, it's about my success. So for that, you need a korban. The third one is not about your success, even in accomplishing, learning more, fulfilling your obligations, even though it's not about your service. It's about the obligation. Here to begin with, it's for the Eibishter himself. It's a whole, this is the tzaddik, really. This is the highest service of Hashem. You need and want my mitzvahs. That's what it's all about. Not this world or next world. To make it clearer. The first level is, it's about this world. Why is he doing it? Because in this world, it's good. The second level is, it's not this world, it's the next world. And the third level, it's not about this world or the next world, about God alone. That's another way of putting it, but it's different ways of framing this. Okay, friends, hope that you have some understanding. Even if we don't get, I want you to repeat this at your Shabbos tables, even if you don't get the three levels, but the basic idea, surely we get. And I hope you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day.
Shkoyach, Rabbi.
Print out the paper so it'll remind you. It'll be a good. Okay.
Take care of everybody.
Have a wonderful week.